Здрасте. Я думала, что будет...
He asked why I never initiate sex, so I said because I know you'll do it eventually. Looking back, that moment was the beginning of the end, though the end had actually started years before. I'm Stella, 32, and I'd been married to Grayson for 8 years when those careless words left my mouth. We had the 4-bedroom house in Oakwood Hills, 2 kids with perfect attendance records and the kind of social media presence that made other couples jealous. Hush, blessed, am I right? Grayson was always the good one. Responsible, steady, the kind of guy who remembers your parents' birthdays and changes the air filters exactly when they need changing. When we met in college, all my friends said I'd hit the jackpot. A guy with actual life goals, who could cook something besides ramen, and didn't think future planning meant deciding which bar to hit next weekend. Back then, I thought that was enough. Stability seemed sexy when you've spent your early 20s dealing with guys who couldn't commit to a coffee date, let alone a relationship. Our wedding was Pinterest perfect. The honeymoon was in a resort where celebrities go, and then real life happened. Emma came along within a year, Noah 2 years after that. Somewhere between managing temper tantrums and mortgage payments, our marriage became functional. Not bad, just there, like the refrigerator humming in the background. You don't think about it unless it stops working. Grayson noticed the change before I did, or at least he tried to talk about it. "You seem different lately," he said one night while I was scrolling through Instagram. "Like you're here, but not really here." "I'm just tired," I replied, not looking up from my phone. The universal excuse of mothers everywhere. The kids are exhausting, work is stressful, you know how it is. He nodded, accepting my explanation like he always did. Too easily, probably. "Remember when we used to stay up all night just talking?" A hint of nostalgia in his voice. "We were younger then," I said dismissively, "and we didn't have 2 tiny terrorists destroying our sleep schedule." He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. If I'd been paying attention, I might have recognized it as the sound of something breaking, but I wasn't paying attention. Not to him, anyway. At dinner with our friends Tanya and Mark that weekend, the conversation turned to relationships, as it often did. They were going through a messy divorce. He'd cheated with someone at work. She'd retaliated by accidentally backing over his golf clubs in the driveway. "I don't get it," Tanya said, gesturing between Grayson and me with her wine glass. 8 years, and you still act like you like each other. What's your secret?" Grayson smiled, pulling me closer. "Communication," he said, "the perfect husband with the perfect answer. We talk about everything." I forced a smile, taking a large sip of my wine. If Tanya knew that our communication mostly consisted of coordinating schedules and discussing bills, would she still think we had the perfect marriage? If she knew how I tensed when Grayson touched me, not because I disliked him but because I felt nothing, would she still envy us? When Jamie texted about her birthday celebration the following weekend at Skyline Lounge, I showed Grayson the message, fully expecting him to sigh about babysitting duty. "You should definitely go," he said instead, kissing my temple. "You deserve a night out. I'll handle the kids." He was always so accommodating. So nice. Sometimes it made me want to scream, to push him until he pushed back, just to feel something. Instead, I thanked him and started mentally planning my outfit. That Friday night, I put more effort into my appearance than I had in years. My black dress was tight in new places. Motherhood had rearranged my body like some cosmic practical joke, but when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see Emma and Noah's mom or Grayson's wife. I saw Stella. Just Stella. "Wow," Grayson said from the doorway, eyes wide. "You look amazing." "Thanks," I said, applying another coat of mascara. "Don't wait up. Jamie's parties usually go late." He nodded, watching me with an expression I chose not to interpret. "Just text if you need me to come get you." The Skyline Lounge throbbed with energy when I arrived. Jamie had reserved the VIP section, and my friends squealed when they saw me, pressing drinks into my hands and pulling me onto the dance floor. 2 drinks in, I was dancing. 3 drinks in, I was laughing without restraint. It felt like stepping out of a fog I hadn't realized I was in. That's when I saw him watching me. Tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that didn't politely look away when I caught him staring. He smiled instead, confident, unapologetic. Who is that? I asked Jamie, trying to sound casual. She followed my gaze and grinned. That's Demetrius. He's a trainer at my gym. Gorgeous, right? And single. She grabbed my hand. Come on, I'll introduce you. Up close, Demetrius was even more imposing, at least 6'2", with arms that made it clear he spent serious time lifting weights. And young. Definitely younger than me, maybe 26. Demetrius, this is my friend Stella, Jamie said. Stella Demetrius. His handshake was firm, his palm rough with calluses. Nice to meet you, Stella, he said, my name sounding different in his deep voice. Can I buy you a drink? The responsible answer was no. The responsible thing was to mention my husband, my kids, my life. Instead, I heard myself say, I'd like that. Jamie disappeared into the crowd, leaving me alone with this stranger who made me feel more alive in 30 seconds than Grayson had in years. One drink turned into two. Dancing turned into his hand on the small of my back, guiding me to a quieter corner. We talked about nothing important. Not once did I mention Grayson or the kids. Not once did it feel like betrayal. It just felt like being awake after years of sleepwalking. Want to get some air? He asked, his lips close to my ear, sending electricity through me. I nodded, letting him lead me up to the rooftop garden. It was chilly, and without asking, he draped his jacket over my shoulders. It smelled like expensive cologne and raw masculinity. You're not like Jamie's other friends, he said, studying me with those intense eyes. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, feigning offense. He laughed, a low rumble. Most of her friends from the gym are all protein shakes and competition schedules. You seem different. I'm a married mom of 2 if that's what you're asking, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. For some reason I wanted to see if that would send him running. Instead, he just nodded slowly. I figured. You've got that look. What look? I demanded. The look of someone who deserves more than she's getting, he said simply. I should have been insulted. I should have defended Grayson, our marriage, my choices. Instead, I felt a rush of validation so powerful it left me breathless. This stranger saw me, really saw me, in a way Grayson hadn't in years. What happened next seemed inevitable. His hand on my face, my lack of resistance. A kiss that started gentle, but quickly became something else entirely. Hungry, demanding, nothing like the perfunctory pecks Grayson and I exchanged. We shouldn't, I whispered when we finally broke apart, though my body was screaming the opposite. Probably not, he agreed, his thumb tracing my lower lip. But I'm pretty sure we're going to anyway. It was past midnight when Jamie found us still on the rooftop, my lipstick long gone and his hair mussed from my fingers. She raised an eyebrow, but said nothing except, We're heading to my place for the after party. You two coming? I should have gone home. I should have called an Uber. I should have done a lot of things differently. Instead, I found myself at Jamie's downtown loft, still with Demetrius, ignoring a text from Grayson asking if I was having fun. As the party wound down, Jamie drunkenly announced she was going to bed. Mi casa es su casa, she slurred, stumbling toward her bedroom. Guest room's made up if anyone wants to crash. Then it was just Demetrius and me in her living room, the tension between us electric. I should probably go, I said, not moving an inch. Probably, he agreed, equally still. Then, I don't have anything with me, protection I mean. It was my last chance to do the right thing. Instead, I heard myself say, that's okay, in a voice I barely recognized as my own. His eyes darkened. You sure about that? I wasn't sure about anything except that I wanted to feel something, anything, other than the numb routine my life had become. I'm sure. What followed was nothing like sex with Grayson. There was no familiarity, no routine, no knowing what came next. Demetrius was all intensity and demand, his large hands leaving invisible marks everywhere they touched. He wasn't gentle or careful or considerate. He took, claimed, consumed, and I loved every second of it. Afterward, reality began to creep back in. I had just cheated on my husband. I had just had unprotected sex with a virtual stranger. I had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And yet, I felt no regret. No crushing guilt, just a strange clarity. Like finally admitting a truth I'd been denying for years. My marriage had been sexually unfulfilling from the beginning. Grayson had never made me feel the way Demetrius had in one night. This doesn't have to be complicated, Demetrius said, reading my thoughts. This was just physical, one night, no strings. I was grateful for his directness, for the lack of false promises or morning after awkwardness. No strings, I agreed. When I got home the next morning, Grayson was making pancakes with the kids. He smiled, asked if I had fun, and didn't question my vague answers. He kissed me hello, and I let him, wondering if he could somehow tell that everything had changed. But nothing changed, at least not visibly. Life went on. I made lunches, attended meetings, drove carpools. Only I knew about the chasm that had opened inside me, a secret that hummed beneath my skin. Over brunch the next week, I told Jamie and Tanya everything. Neither was shocked. We'd all been friends long enough to have witnessed each other's worst moments, but Tanya was concerned. "Are you going to see him again?" she asked. "No," I said firmly. "It was just one night. That's all it needed to be." "And Grayson?" Jamie pressed. "Are you going to tell him?" The question made my stomach clench. God, no. What would be the point? It would just hurt him. It didn't mean anything. Tanya raised an eyebrow. "If it didn't mean anything, why did you do it?" I didn't have a good answer then. Now I do. Because for one night, I wanted to feel desired rather than convenient. I wanted passion instead of comfort. I wanted to be selfish after years of putting everyone else first. The truth is, sleeping with Demetrius didn't ruin my marriage. It just made me finally admit what I'd been denying. Grayson and I had settled into a tepid companionship that lacked any real fire. The sex had never been mind-blowing, even in the beginning. I just convinced myself that passion wasn't important in a mature relationship. After that night, intimacy with Grayson became even more of a challenge. Not because I was pining for Demetrius. I barely thought about him as a person. But because I now knew what I was missing. Each time Grayson touched me, I had to fight the comparison. Each time we had sex, I found myself going through motions, mentally counting minutes until it was over. I never reached out to Demetrius, and he never contacted me. True to his word, it was just one night. But that didn't stop his name from coming up whenever my closest friends and I had wine nights. Remember when Demetrius absolutely ruined Stella? Tanya would joke, and we'd all laugh like it was just another funny story. I could barely walk the next day, I'd add, feeding the legend while Grayson was at home with our kids. Those moments of shared secrets made me feel powerful, like I was getting away with something. The thrill of the deception was almost as intoxicating as the night itself had been. But as the years passed, Grayson became more withdrawn, more uncertain. He tried harder in bed, buying books and toys, suggesting new positions or locations. I went along with it all, never telling him that the problem wasn't technique or setting. The problem was that his touch no longer excited me, and hadn't for longer than I cared to admit. "What am I doing wrong?" he asked one night after another session where I'd clearly been mentally elsewhere. "You used to enjoy this. You used to want me." "I'm just tired," I said, the excuse I'd been using for years. "The kids, work, everything, it's a lot." He nodded, accepting my explanation even though we both knew it was a lie. "I just miss you," he said quietly. "I miss us." There was genuine pain in his voice, and for a brief moment I considered telling him everything. But what would that solve? It would only hurt him more, and despite everything, I did love Grayson. Not passionately, but steadily. He was my partner, my children's father, my life's foundation. So I kissed him instead, whispered that I loved him, and promised things would get better once the kids were older and life was less hectic. Another lie to add to the collection. 3 years after Jamie's birthday party, Grayson and I were getting ready for bed, following the same routine we'd established years ago. Brush teeth, wash face, check on kids, set alarms. He sat on the edge of the bed, watching me apply my night cream. There was something different in his expression, a determination I hadn't seen in years. "Stella," he said, his voice steady but strained. "Why don't you ever initiate sex anymore?" The question caught me off guard. We'd danced around the issue for so long that his directness was jarring. I could have given him 1,000 different answers, that I was tired, stressed, not in the mood. I could have lied and promised to try harder. Instead, without looking up from my phone, I said the most thoughtless, cruel thing possible, "Because I know you'll do it eventually." The silence that followed was deafening. I finally looked up to see Grayson staring at me, his face a mixture of hurt and disbelief. "What's that supposed to mean?" he asked, his voice unnaturally calm. I shrugged, already regretting my words but too proud to take them back. It means what it means. You always initiate eventually, so why should I bother? So you're just… what? Tolerating me? Waiting for me to get it over with? Each word seemed to cost him something. That's not what I meant, I backpedaled, putting my phone down. I'm just saying we have a routine. It works. Why complicate things? A routine, he repeated flatly. Is that what our marriage is to you? A routine? Don't be dramatic, I said, defensive now. All marriages settle into routines. That's normal. Normal? Grayson stood up, running his hands through his hair in frustration. Stella, there's a difference between routine and indifference. Do you even want to be with me anymore? The question hung in the air between us. The truth was complicated. I did want to be with him. I wanted our family, our home, our life together. What I didn't want was the physical aspect of our relationship. But I couldn't say that without opening a door I'd kept firmly shut for 3 years. That night, Grayson slept in the guest room for the first time in our marriage. I lay awake, oscillating between indignation that he was making such a big deal out of one careless comment and fear that something fundamental had shifted between us. The next few weeks were tense. We maintained a civil facade for the children, but Grayson remained distant, sleeping in the guest room and coming home later from work. I alternated between trying to act like nothing had happened and growing increasingly frustrated with what I saw as his childish behavior. Then came the text that changed everything. I was having lunch with Tanya when my phone buzzed with a message from Jamie. Emergency. Mark just called Grayson. He knows. Call me now. My blood ran cold. Mark, Tanya's ex-husband, Grayson's friend from college. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Mark had been at parties where we'd joked about Demetrius. Mark, nursing his wounds from Tanya's betrayal, had decided to share what he knew with Grayson. I excused myself from lunch and called Jamie from the restaurant bathroom. What exactly does Mark know? I demanded, my heart racing. Everything, Jamie said, panic in her voice. Tanya told him about Demetrius years ago. Apparently, he's been sitting on it all this time, and now that they're divorced. What did he tell Grayson? My voice was barely a whisper. I don't know exactly, Jamie admitted, but Mark texted me saying we should be ashamed of ourselves for covering for you all these years. I ended the call and stood frozen in the bathroom stall, my mind racing. This couldn't be happening, not after 3 years. Not when I'd been so careful. The affair had meant nothing, just one night of rebellion, of feeling desired. It wasn't worth destroying my family over. I drove home in a daze, rehearsing denials and explanations. When I pulled into the driveway, Grayson's car was already there, hours before he should have been home from work. The house was quiet when I entered. No children's voices, no TV, just silence. Grayson sat at the kitchen island, a glass of whiskey in front of him, his face expressionless. Where are the kids? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. At my mother's, he said flatly. I thought we needed privacy for this conversation. I decided to play dumb. What conversation? He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes harder than I'd ever seen them. I got an interesting call from Mark today. About you, about Jamie's birthday party 3 years ago, about someone named Demetrius. My heart stopped. Mark's lying, I said automatically. He's just bitter about the divorce and trying to cause problems. Is he? Grayson asked, his voice deadly calm. Because he had a lot of specific details that explain a lot about the last 3 years, about why my wife stopped wanting me, about why she tenses when I touch her, about why she never initiates intimacy. Whatever he told you, it's not. Stop, Grayson held up a hand, cutting me off. Just stop lying to me, Stella. I've talked to Mark. I've talked to Jamie. I know what happened. My mind raced. Jamie had betrayed me? No, that couldn't be right. Then I realized, Grayson was bluffing. He hadn't talked to Jamie. He was fishing for a confession. Jamie would never talk to you about me behind my back, I said triumphantly, catching him in the lie. A flicker of something, satisfaction, crossed his face. I never said I talked to Jamie about you. I said I talked to her, about picking up Emma's birthday present that she was holding for me. But thanks for confirming that she knows whatever it is you're hiding. I felt the blood drain from my face as I realized my mistake. He hadn't known for certain until I just gave myself away. It was one time, I said, my voice small. 3 years ago. It meant nothing. A stupid mistake at a party. One time, he repeated, swirling his whiskey. One time that you've been laughing about with your friends for 3 years. One time that completely changed how you feel about me. One time that apparently ruined you for normal relationships. Hearing my own cruel jokes repeated back to me made me cringe. How many times had I said those exact words at girls' night, thinking they would never reach Grayson's ears? Those were just stupid jokes, I said weakly. They didn't mean anything. Didn't they? His voice was tired, defeated, because they match perfectly with how you've treated me for the past 3 years. The distance, the reluctance, the way you're physically present but emotionally checked out. I felt cornered, desperate. It was one mistake, Grayson. One night that meant nothing. Are you really going to throw away 8 years of marriage over this? I'm not the one who threw anything away, he said quietly. You did that 3 years ago, and every day since, when you chose to lie about it, when you chose to joke about it with your friends instead of working on our marriage, when you made me feel like I was crazy for sensing something was wrong between us. What do you want me to say? I asked, tears finally springing to my eyes. That I'm sorry? Fine, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. It won't happen again. That's the thing, Stella, he said, standing up. I don't think you're sorry. Not really. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your comfortable life might be disrupted. But you're not sorry for the act itself, or for the years of deception that followed. He was right, of course, though I wouldn't admit it. I wasn't sorry about Demetrius. That night had been an awakening, a glimpse into what passion could feel like. What I was sorry about was the possibility of losing the stability and security that Grayson provided. What happens now? I asked, suddenly exhausted. I'll be staying at my brother's for a while, he said, picking up a duffel bag I hadn't noticed by the door. I've already talked to a lawyer about separation papers. You can stay in the house with the kids for now. They shouldn't have to be disrupted because of your choices. Separation? I repeated, panic rising. This was moving too fast. Don't you think we should talk about this? Maybe try counseling? Grayson laughed, a hollow sound with no humor in it. Now you want counseling? After 3 years of lies? After I practically begged you to go to therapy with me? People make mistakes, Grayson, I said desperately. One night shouldn't erase 8 years together. It's not about the one night, he said, his voice breaking slightly. It's about who you've shown yourself to be. Someone who could cheat, lie to my face for years, laugh about it behind my back, and then tell me with a straight face that I'm overreacting. That's not the person I married. That's not someone I can trust with my heart anymore. With that, he picked up his bag and walked to the door. He paused there, not looking back. I'll call tomorrow about arrangements for the kids. Don't try to contact me otherwise, my lawyer will be in touch. And then he was gone, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen of the home we'd built together, with the ruins of my carefully constructed life scattered around me like broken glass. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Grayson was unfailingly fair in the settlement and remained a devoted father to our children, but he never came home. Never gave me a chance to explain or make excuses. Never wavered in his decision that our marriage was over. My friends gradually distanced themselves, uncomfortable with their role in my deception and its aftermath. Even Jamie, who had been my confidant for years, stopped returning my calls after a while. It turned out that people who help you lie aren't eager to stick around when the truth comes out. I kept the house, the furniture, half of our savings. On paper, I didn't lose much. But as I wander through rooms that suddenly seem too big, too quiet when the kids are with Grayson, I'm forced to acknowledge a truth I've been avoiding. Actions have consequences, even when you've convinced yourself they don't. The worst part isn't losing Grayson or even losing my friends. It's knowing that I still don't regret that night with Demetrius. What I regret is thinking I could have it all, the passion and the security, the thrill and the stability, without making difficult choices or having uncomfortable conversations. So when people ask what happened to my marriage, I tell them we grew apart. I mention my stupid comment about intimacy as if that was the turning point. I never mentioned Demetrius or the real reason everything fell apart. Some secrets, it seems, I'm still determined to keep, even after they've cost me everything that actually mattered.